Thank you. Thank you of you tonight to join our VMAC forum. VMAC forum, actually VMAC is the Videotage Media Arts Collection, and VMAC forum is an online talk program that our archive started in 2021 in the midst of pandemic to invite arts practitioners from different fields to talk about their ongoing projects to a public audience on Zoom. And on the one hand, it hopes to bridge the gap between the art world and the general public, especially the students and also the practitioners. And on the other hand, it aims to connect art practitioners from different backgrounds. For example, last year we have the topic about the VR experience, and this year we will have the topic about the archiving and preserving in different models of the time-based media. So tonight we have the two different models and two significant organizations that from Amsterdam and also from Berlin. One is n.b.k. It's a Berlin-based institution founded in 1969, which is a site of contemporary arts and discourse production. And the collection of n.b.k, which is named as Videoforum, makes available to the public over 1,700 international works of video arts. And tonight we will have the managing director of n.b.k and also head of Videoforum, Anna, to share with us. And also another organization tonight is LIMA. LIMA is a prominent platform of for media arts based in Amsterdam, founded in 1978, and which is also a pioneer and center of expertise in the fields of preservation, research, and distribution of media arts. And also tonight we will have Gaby, who is the director of LIMA, to share with us as well. Yeah. So now we'll have the time for Anna from n.b.k first, and then we will have Gaby from LIMA, and then we'll have some Q&A section. And feel free to leave your questions on the chat box, or later you can talk with us directly as well. Yeah. So Anna, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you also to Angel and the whole team of Videotage for the invitation. I'm very happy to be part of this talk today. And thank you for the kind introduction that already summed up a few elements. I might repeat some of them because I thought it's interesting to just give you a few words about n.b.k as an institution, and then the history of the Videoforum, which is strongly connected to the institution's history, and then give you a bit more insights into our praxis, and then being open for questions afterwards. You see an image of n.b.k here. As Emily mentioned, n.b.k, which stands for Neuer Berliner Kunstverein, is one of the first institutions for contemporary art in Berlin, founded in 1969. In the context of the student movement and out of an interest of a group of curators and cultural producers and artists in a more democratic form of art and in unconventional experimental artistic practices and approaches of that time, so in especially fluxes and happening, performance art and conceptual art. We are today internationally renowned for exhibition and our exhibition discourse program with a strong focus on politically and socially engaged art, realizing 6 to 8 exhibitions per year in 2 exhibition spaces. So you have an outside view. We're in Berlin District Mitte. In the center, it's from former West Berlin. And we have on the street level, we have the big exhibition space. And on the upper floor, we also have another smaller exhibition space called showroom in our offices. And we also invite artists to make like facade works to the urban space. So here you see one by Alfredo Ja, which is like above the windows. And there where it's written Farocchi, this is the premises of the Videoforum. So it's also on street level for everyone to walk in, ideally. And we're here since, like with the Videoforum, we are here since 2008, n.b.k is here since 1994. So what makes the institution special is that we hold two collections. One is called Artothek. It's a kind of library for original artworks that can be loaned by all Berlin citizens for a small insurance fee. The Artothek has been founded in 1970. And then the video art collection called Videoforum that has been founded in 1971. Both collections are publicly accessible, free of charge, and constantly growing. So Videoforum, founded as early in 71, was back then named Videothek. This name remained until 1985 and was changed then to display the diverse activities and also to distinguish itself from the then growing commercial video rental stores that also are called Videothek in Germany. It is the oldest, and with around 1,700 works today, also one of the biggest international video art collections in Germany, and also one of the biggest in Europe. The idea to found the Videoforum was came from an artist. Video art pioneer Wolf Kahlen, who is still alive and active in Berlin. And he was invited to make an exhibition at n.b.k, but instead suggested to realize a new video work with this money. And there were like broad discussions in the institution as there were doubts about investing money in an acquisition of something like a videotape, as there was not even the means to show or see what was on it. So it was basically something like an obscure piece of plastic. And I think it's interesting to mention, as this reaction already displays the general problems and difficulties for collecting and archiving video art, especially in the beginning and up until the 1990s, as its specific materiality or immateriality and the back then not yet established place within the art market kept private as well as public collections, and thus the conventional sites of keeping art hesitant to include works of this back then new art form. So it can be stressed enough how far-sighted it was back then by this group of like cultural producers and educators close to n.b.k to set up something like a place for video art, a video art collection in 1971, and also focused from the beginning on to make it both a place for presentation of video art, but also trying to finding ways to bring this new art form to the public. It was a very informal founding in the context of the existing structures of the n.b.k. And as a institution per se, it's just developed itself over the course of several years. And as Wolf Kahlen, the first work we also see here, he produced it in, it was a 7-part work. He recorded on 60mm film, actually, as it was still complicated to get the video technique, and it was very expensive at the time as well. And there's several works, like from the first works we co-produced mainly in the beginning, that have been actually recorded on film, 60mm film. But it was via these artists, Wolf Vostell very early on, and Wolf Kahlen, and other Fluxus avant-gardists and video pioneers, and also international artists that came to Berlin, to West Berlin back then, for a temporary stay via a artist in residence program from DAAD, which is the German Academic Exchange Program, that build up the early collection of the Videoforum, as there was these artists present and in contact. So it was very, Videoforum was always like in touch with the artists close by. So artists like Namjoon Pai, John Jonas, Mario Merz, Robert Filiou, Taka Imura, Alan Capo have been in Berlin via these residency programs, and there was a strong connection. So the first works in the collection were mainly co-productions, sometimes as well stemming from live happenings and performances. So I just show you an old poster of one here, very famous exhibition that has been called Aktionen der Avantgarde. It's like Actions of the Avant-Garde, short ADA. It was realized in 73 and in 74. And it were like happenings and performances in public spaces in Berlin, so all over the city, and also shows like this main purpose also of n.b.k back then, to bring people closer to the arts and to many of the thinkers. So many of these happenings were then recorded on videotape and now survive in the collection of the Videoforum. A prominent one, for example, is the work Timepieces by Alan Capro, which has been co-produced in the context of ADA and Neue Berliner Kunstverein. We until today also continue with the co-productions, although at some point we started collecting in the classical sense to acquiring works. So since the early days, n.b.k has produced up until 40 new co-productions. The most recent one is called Girl Folding a Handkerchief from Romanian artist Alexandra Piric, has been realized in 2021. Sometimes these new produced works are presented within solo exhibitions at n.b.k, like lately in the case of Candice Bright, Sion Bock, Clemens von Wedemeyer, Hito Steyer, Ming Wong, Hartmut Bitomski, Laura Horelli, Ursula Biemann, or Alejandro Cesar. So Videoforum was always interested in supporting video art production in general, and then also to be involved, to encourage and acquire and make public new video art forms on a high international level and independent from the art market, as we are also a publicly funded, non-commercial, independent institution from the beginning on. But very soon, or besides production, Videoforum also was concerned with preservation and care, and the pre-mentioned public availability and documentation of video works. And always has been interested in making the collection accessible and visible to a broad audience. But then in the around the early 2000s, there was a limit reached, as to an extent of around 80% of the collection was found on analog U-matic low band. The various generations of U-matic cassettes and U-matic players often no longer worked together. A tape from the 1970s could have an image or sound problem on a machine from the 1980s while working without problem on a different machine. This has not only made it increasingly difficult to provide the audience with the possibility of viewing the material, but also made it more difficult to describe the conservational state of the tapes. In light of the fact that U-matic players were slowly pushed from the market, and in the awareness of increasing damage to the collection holdings due to mechanical wear and tear and the porosity of the tape material, the conservation of the works for the Videoforum became an ever more urgent problem. So in order to maintain the collection holdings, n.b.k started from 2003 on, and then several years later again, to invest significant funds in the digitalization of the holdings, firstly in MPEG-2 format, in order to preserve the norm and also preserve the norm on the hard drive, copying video works to be viewed on site on DVDs. And I will now show you a few, like just a few images of the viewing situation. So this was really, really early on, which was still in another part of Berlin, where you can see someone, it was in 75, how to watch work in that situation. And then later on, I think this is a good image where you can see the different players and media. You also, what is not in the image, but you see there's also a computer there already, but so different viewing situations of the video forum. And also this has been designed, as it's, I think, easy to remark from it's an artistic design for the space for people to watch it. This is an image from the inside, from the premises we're still in now, on the street level I showed you before. And there you have all these DVDs. So people had to write us beforehand which numbers, which works they want to see, so we could select them and prepare them for being viewed on site. Also here, the display has been an artistic design from an artist called Silke Wagner. And this is how the space looks today. We remodeled it recently, also with Silke Wagner again, who cooperated because we were interested in having a very flexible space, so everything can be moved very quickly in order to have a situation for a screening or for a seminar, or just like this now would be the classic situation for people coming in the space and scrolling through the collection. So where did I stop? Yeah, so we had the DVDs, and then since 2014, they have been substituted, of course, by hard drives. And so now it's easier for visitors to browse themselves through the whole collection when being on site and at the video forum. So this digitalization has both simplified scholarly research and also expanded remote access to our collection catalog via our website. Because during the digitalization, every work has been like tagged and also cataloged in a new way and made accessible. And the catalog has been made accessible via the website of n.b.k. We also recently relaunched the website and broadened the accessibility with a range of new options to search for specific works in the context of the video forum catalog, and also started in the context of the 50th anniversary 2021 an oral history series that is published on the website and accessible online. And the first one who gave a talk, we're inviting video art pioneers to give them a voice, of also to describe how the first years, how was the beginning to work with video, how were the difficulties, what was the interest in using this new media. And Wolfgang, who you saw before, of course, also made the first oral history, was the first partner to make an oral history presentation with us. So this now described media migration, it might be obvious today, but back then it meant an important leap in conservational terms and opened for especially new possibilities for the animation of the archive, I would say, in the form of numerous new possibilities of presenting the collection and screenings and video seminars with institutions in Western and Eastern Europe, in the US, in Asia, Latin America, and Russia, where video forum programs were presented, and also parallel to regular video screenings, artist presentations, and discussions at n.b.k. So the collection has been movable since then in a very new way, and we make use of it. And also it has been and still is a very important aspect of our work at the video forum to realize extensive exhibitions in which also beyond the collection parameters, which are that we acquire mostly single channel works, and I think this is something we can talk about later, again, to make also like to present video art in the right format and on certain devices in a more complex ways or in multi-channel installations. But in general, it is more difficult for us, and we try to focus on single-channel works still, even though video installations and multi-channel works have been growing in importance. But we have this premise you can see here in the image, but we don't have a big storage or anything, so we also are not able to store any kind of installative parts. And so in general, our acquisition policy, to briefly mention it at least, is since the beginning has been an international, to try to collect internationally, which always has been also influenced by the situation Berlin was in. As I mentioned, we cooperated with this artist in residency program, but it was in Western Berlin. So mainly the artists we acquired back then and the cooperations we did were with like US American, Northern American, and West European artists. And just after the reunification of Germany, after the 1990s, we started to also open up explicitly open up to Eastern European art, and acquired more than 100 works by more than 100 artists from these regions, and also started purchasing more from the Arab world, from Iran, China, Japan, and so on. Also important, of course, for our acquisitions are like several focal points we have that result mainly from the history of the collection and of the medium itself, as it started as early on. So there is thematically, technically, and aesthetic properties that can be found in the collection in their development over these times. So of course, one focal point is fluxes, one video performance. Feminist video practice has been very important from the beginning on. Media reflexive approaches, as well as historical and current video art from Berlin. And then in recent years, also we reacted and had a new emphasis on essay film and critical documentary formats, which might be easiest described with works like those from Harun Farocki, who is, I think, internationally famous for that new form of use of video and film, like on the intersection of video and film. We have since the late 90s been actually very lucky to be part of a funding scheme of the Berlin Senate, which is called the Visual Arts Commission of the Berlin Senate, and there is like different Berlin institutions with collections, public collections, are involved there and make new acquisitions once a year. And this allows us also to have a fair budget to buy new works with, but also comes along with restrictions such as we have to buy works by Berlin-based artists, because for the Berlin Senate, it's a means of funding Berlin arts productions, which is luckily in Berlin not that complicated. Still, it is also restricting our policies. Still, we try to make the best out of it, and I'm very grateful for it. And also try to always buy our works by younger artists, but also then some artists that are more established already. So to maybe wrap it up, I have not seen the time. The Videoforum is a place for artists, scholars, curators, students from art schools, universities, and for all people interested. We are open 3 days a week or upon appointment. There's always specifically trained staff on site to assist visitors and give them some more information about the works if needed. For requests from other regions or from abroad, we also offer options for restricted digital viewings, but our collection still can't be accessed completely online for several reasons. We still do regularly exhibitions and screening programs in Berlin in cooperation with other partners or nationally and internationally. And of course, also not just with the pandemic, but more and more also try to make a digital program. I'm not sure, is the time I can, time's up, okay. Yeah, so I will stop here and just maybe give you some more, just some images, and then I'm happy to come back to some of this, some installation shots as examples from cooperation and an image from the new website. And I keep it with that. I'm looking forward to the questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. And now we will have the sharing from Gaby, the director of LIMA. Yeah, thank you, Gaby. Gaby, you may have to unmute yourself.
Yes, I did. Hi there. Nice to be here. Thank you for the invitation. It's really nice to have the opportunity to show our practice and also to compare, because we have quite some things in common and also some things are totally different. So that's great. I think especially the history part is quite similar. LIMA is an organization that's 10 years old, but we come from a long line of organizations, grassroots organizations, but also national organizations in the Netherlands that were dedicated more or less to media art or electronic art or video art. So in the late 70s, René Coelho started Montevideo, a media art or electronic art gallery where a lot of work was produced, presented, distributed. And over the years, there were fusions with other institutions, for instance, the video section of the Apple, so that called time-based arts, or Lijnbaancentrum, or other institutions that handed over their archives and collections to Montevideo, or the Netherlands Media Art Institute at the time. LIMA is a distributor. That means that we don't acquire works. Artists, we do select works, and artists outsource the promotion and the presentation of the works to us. And we take care of the works and also make them available for presentations worldwide. That gains a bit of income, and that's shared between the artists and LIMA. And next to distribution or this agency, LIMA also takes care of other collections in the Netherlands that outsource the maintenance and presentation and preservation of their works to us. On top of that, of course, we do a lot of presentations and also a lot of research and projects. So let me see. Our own collection, we always call the distribution collection. So only part of it, a small part of it, is produced by us. But it's also basically video art. And there is 25% maybe more installation based or multiple channel, and more interactive, and some sound works, and also in the research and in the collections that we take care of. For other collections, there's also a lot of software based art and other materials. So from the 60s till now, lots of titles, lots of artists, and topics are not so very different from the ones Anna was mentioning, like media critique and activism, performance recordings or video performances, and also medium specifics and more narrative works. As I said, we also have this digital repository for media art in the Netherlands. Also, some institutions abroad use it, but basically Dutch institutions. So these are about 50 institutions, from private collectors to corporate collections to museums to archives, and they outsource the preservation and the storage and accessibility of the works to us. And this is actually, together with the distribution and this presentation, the model of LIMA. The Netherlands Media Art Institute was funded by the government and was a national institute. But in 2012, all these national specialized institutes were stopped. The funding was stopped, I must say. With a group of people and also the museums and the artists, we decided to continue and keep the knowledge and the network and the infrastructure and renew it and find a new model how to continue. And this is actually the model we came up with. At one hand, we can continue what we did on the base of distribution. At the other hand, we gain knowledge, we share knowledge, and we offer services for preservation. And also for preservation, we work for the artists and the institutions. Yeah, we're totally based, totally focused on media art, and to see how we can offer support and what support is needed, and to share knowledge and to gain knowledge, to develop knowledge on different topics and in different constructions. We work with digital preservation. They have a reference model, that's the Open Archiving Information System. It's very simple in a scheme here, but it has a bit more options than you think. For instance, what we do is when institutions or artists send us their material, we check. So we do quality control. We see if it's complete, if it's the best quality as source for the future. And also, since we have such an amount of works, we also detect doublures or doubles and all kind of versions. But also sometimes quality comes in that's not the best quality for future preservation. And then we go back to the institution or to the artist to see if there's another quality available that we can use for future sake. So we archive all these files and masters and originals. We have a vault, and we also have robots with LTO tapes. That's a data tape where we store, and we use different formats. When it's digital work, we take it in the original codec as long as possible. When it's an analog work, we will transfer it to a sustainable part. As you see, we have these archival submasters. This is often the case with video. But if we have a more complex work, we make disk images, but we all store it on this LTO. We also take care of websites, and therefore we have a virtual servers in our art house. And next to the masters and the archival submasters, of course, we have a lot of stills and fragments and files with a watermark and files for presentations. And we have multiple copies. And the works and the copies are all checked on a regular basis. This is the art host. Art host is the service for hosting net art and more online artworks. So there is a whole system of virtual servers installed. We take over the hosting as well. So we take care of the domain name and the files, so we can reconstruct the works, and it all is all the time checked. We do have most of the works in our collection, so the distribution collection, they are online. As a distributor, we have the rights to promote and present the work, so we can also put them online. You have to ask for a login to see the full version, and then the full version has a watermark still. And if you don't ask for login, then you can see the descriptions and a still and a fragment. This is our own catalog, still up and running. Soon it will look more like this. We have another catalog also combined with some collections in the Netherlands. Of course, it would be great to give access to all these collections that we take care of. But unfortunately, that's not always possible. Of course, when you come over to LIMA, there's a lot of documentation and archival material, also from this 50 years of media art events and recordings, and also from the other collections we take care of. But only a few of them put their works online, and this is great for visibility. And it's mediakunst.net, mediaart.net is the URL. Let me see, there's something in the chat. Some minutes left. We have quite some equipment, of course, and I always say we don't collect equipment, but of course we have heaps and heaps of equipment because we need it. If you want to watch a work or to transfer an analog work, you need all this equipment. And this is basically all video equipment, what you see, from synchronization devices for VMAC, synchronizations devices for laser discs, I see, and lots of other stuff. Of course, we also have a software repository, but yeah, that's not such a nice picture. This always shows more. This is not a picture of our lab. This is a picture of the lab of Johannes Kveller, but we have a similar one, and all these different devices that you need for checking and cleaning and transferring the different formats. Current challenges. It's getting more and more, all these works, of course, and we're very happy with that, but also how to keep them active, how to keep them available, and how to get visibility and support. For us particularly, that's also very important, since we are funded nowadays by the Amsterdam city, but not by the government anymore. And the Amsterdam city, of course, values LIMA very much for the international and groundbreaking position or things that we do, but also looks a lot at our presentations and all the things that we do in Amsterdam. So the whole support for the preservation services that we do, and also for supporting the artists in the presentation of the works, is for a large part funded by income that we make with it. So for the distribution, we have to ask for money, and for the preservation, the services also are paid. We are not a profit organization. We are really like a not-for-profit organizations and work on a collaborative base. But of course, we're looking for more support in the national network of institutions. And one very important point at the moment is more and more to transfer the knowledge we have and how to maintain the works and the old technologies and so on to a younger generation, to my staff, but also to other conservators, curators, and art historians. We are located at the former, I have to say, pathological anatomical lab, and we do a lot of research. Just to highlight some, we do a lot of research, but seldom on our own, always in collaboration. This one, and there's also a nice clip online, is together with the Foundation for the Conservation of Contemporary Art. Peter Struijken is a well-known digital artist in the Netherlands, so we looked into his work into several collections. But we also do research into VR preservation or CD-ROM archiving and such. And this is done with the network of the Dutch heritage institutions. So the Dutch Digital Heritage Networks, that's a whole network where all the heritage institutions in the Netherlands participate. And there we gain and share a lot of knowledge. Also with artists, this is a documentation tool that we developed together with artists, so they can, and it's online, so they can document their work. I don't find the time to discuss the whole technical transfer all the time versus the documentation that's needed to in the future always also give access to the works or to even reinstall a work. But we do so in the project Unfold. And currently, a project we're working on, we call the infrastructure project. So together with a lot of institutions, basically museums in the Netherlands, we selected case studies, and collaboratively we work on these case studies. And these case studies are a bit more complex works, like Compressed Forest by Jan Robert Leegte. It's a browser-based work using Flickr images, for instance, how to preserve that. Or Black News by Khalil Youssef. That's a live feed. And of course, when you present the work, it's always different. So how to document that or how to preserve that? Just a few of them. If you want to know more, let me know. Yeah, this is a long list. What comes up now? There is a little bit a shift of all this emphasis on the technical migration more towards documentation going on. The awareness that we need these knowledge networks and how to activate them, and that you as an institution seldom or hardly can have all this knowledge on your own, but you have to operate in a network. And of course, the ecological footprint and diversity, that's more and more important. Yeah, for years we say already it's about time to put this on the map and to make a bigger network and find more support to share all this knowledge and all these needs and train new staff. And one of the options we use is a symposium. We have each year a Transformation Digital Art Symposium, and that is in March. And this year, the 16th and the 17th, it's offline at LIMA, but there are also online workshops on documentation and analyzing media artworks. So I stop here. This was like a bird view, very quick, but browsing through what we do and what we aim at. Thank you.
Thank you for both of you, the exciting sharing. And now is the time for discussion. And please feel free to write any questions on the chat box, or can also talk to us directly. And I have some questions to both Anna and Gaby as well. But maybe some of the questions you have responded during the sharing, but I would like to have a further discussion as well. For example, like the transformation of the media technology and the infrastructure and the embodiments, like the disappearance of the old model machines and the declining affordance of the tools. How do n.b.k and LIMA preserve and also transfer the time-based media both in tangible and intangible forms? And also, how can tangible media arts or installation be preserved and also be archived? Yeah. Maybe Anna can respond first. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Yeah, I mean, I think it's obvious from the presentations we have a very different approach to preservation. We still also have the hardware, the tangible media in a little storage space, but we don't have the means nor the personnel to really like update, check them on them all the time. So for us, the digitalization was also means of surviving. So it's, but of course it is a pity, and we also think about this a lot. So how to still being able to transport the knowledge that goes along with the actual media. And for some works, it might be not that important. For some, it's obviously very important that they also reflect the medium they have been recorded onto. And so what we do is that when we do installations, exhibitions, that we try to find the proper way. Also, sometimes we are not a distributor, but sometimes we do loans, and then people also ask us for advice to how to present the works, and we always will try to give this along. And besides that, I would say we what I think is very important is to find different ways of to transfer, to have the knowledge at least via text, or like when we do seminars with students, I always try to make them understandable, because from nowadays it's so hard to understand what was the difficulty, what has been the difficulties in the beginning of the medium, or like how this is a medium in flux, and what changed along the technical sides. So yeah, so this is, I think, what we try, but we certainly put accessibility in front of the media technology in that sense.
I really liked your work, like the animation of the collection. I can imagine. I also think accessibility is key. But of course, it's very important to mediate in a way where the work is coming from, and make a translation, if possible, to current devices and audience. And sometimes that's very easy, and sometimes that's super difficult, and sometimes you cannot do it at all. But yeah, this is not one size fits all. This is actually often very dedicated to particular works. And also in exhibiting, yeah, there is always this line where you have to talk about and see what is the best option. Sometimes artists from the 80s were themselves already experimenting with projections, and not only presenting on monitors, of course also aspect ratios, or changing browsers there's a whole list of things to take in consideration, that you have to find a balance in the functionality or in the behavior of the work, but also in the aesthetics. So yeah, we do our best to document that and to make recommendations, and we do, as I showed you, store and preserve some of the equipment, but not all. That's we also don't have these huge depots or storage devices where we can put them all. But we have it also for research. Yeah.
Thank you. And also, I have another questions about the how the process of preserving and archiving involves the reinvention of historical narratives. That it involves like what has been included and what is not, and what can be assessed by the researcher and curators. So from your perspective, how n.b.k and LIMA engage in the process, and how do you see preserving and archiving as embodied knowledge?
Yeah, that's a broad question, but a very nice one, and of course a very important one. I think in general, a lot of the history of media art is not written yet. Also, if we have works of female artists dealing with identity in the 80s, in the 70s, in the 90s, in our collection, that doesn't mean that the narrative is written or that they are well known. So at the moment we have a project. It's slightly different, but it does ring a bell. It's the project together with Wikipedia, where we write biographies of artists and connect them to, or we write them in the format that's used by Wikipedia and then connect them with the catalog. So that, and we have a blog page within this mediakunst.net project where we emphasis on stories and narratives on media artists, genres, and so on, for a more general audience.
Yeah. Well, I think, yeah, as mentioned before, I think I would say personally it is an embodied knowledge. I think this is certainly the case, but also, I mean, as mentioned before, I think video has been always changing, always in flux. And this is also something that can be somehow, so maybe somehow this makes it's part of the medium, specifically in that case of the technology. And so I guess, yeah, Gaby used the word translation, which is an important one, and then maybe to find also a way to translate these diverse stories, like the narration of the work itself, of the background, of the context, of the time, of the technology, but maybe then also making it like reactualization of what has been maybe important in the moment the work has been made. So how to find ways to make this still somehow to transport all these data. Maybe also what, I don't know, it's more on a descriptive format. What we also do is that we have some kind of metadata we also put in the catalog. So if it's a PAL format, for example, we have still, like, we still make even a note if it's like PAL that has been copied from 60mm film or from a different format. So at least to see like how the migration have evolved. But I think this is for those who are looking for it. So if others wouldn't even notice this kind of specific information. Yeah, and then maybe a bit broader is like the oral history we started is also maybe a format of why I found it interesting to have artists themselves talk about what they found interesting and to keep their voices as first voices. And because it's also always different if it's like narrated from an art historical context or from curators' perspectives. So this is something important, but it's also really in the moment, like every year, many of these pioneers are deceased. Unfortunately, it's the time because many of these have been born in the 30s, 40s even. So yeah, I think it's important to also collect these voices at some point.
Thank you. Also, any questions from the audience? You may leave the questions on the chat box, or you can unmute yourself to speak to us directly. If there's no questions, maybe I can ask one more. As an organization focusing on the time-based media, how do you negotiate with the role of archiving and preserving, as well as adapting to the new digital age and the changing landscape of the techno culture? Yeah, I think this is also the situation that Videotage is facing as well. Yeah. Maybe.
Could you maybe explain a bit further, like what you mean also with the recent developments?
Yeah, for example, like LIMA, Gaby has mentioned about the web page or how the collection make it available through the digital platform. So I think for all of us, how to deal with the changing landscape of the techno culture is making it more available of the archive, and also how to archive the digital art as well. I think, yeah, in both sense, yeah.
I can start if you want.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think archiving gets more and more important, but the idea that everything like in the production phase of a work, or like in the transfer or translation to new technical options is documented, and all these documents will be available online. I don't think this is a realistic scenario. Unfortunately, that will never happen, I guess. Oh, let's see. In my lifetime, I don't think that will happen. But of course, it might be possible in the future that far more of this information is also out there, and you can find it. I think next to finding it, one of the most important things is how to understand it. There are lots of issues, or I call it issues, I don't know the different word, but for instance, we had a long time that we were working on a lot of touchscreen-based installations, and they were not broken, but they could not swipe. So you could not swipe. So these were old machines where you really had to push, but no one was used that they had to push. So this kind of how to explain how such a works behaves and how the interaction is very important. Yeah, and I think next to digitizing and making the works available over time, now the next task is indeed figuring out how to get your archive or part of your archive online or accessible, and also that it stays accessible, because yeah, that's a whole new challenge, or not so new, but an extra one, let's say it like that. I'm not sure I 100% answered your question, but this is what I wanted to say more about archiving, and but also like new formats or new lines like the metaverse, or lots of emphasis at the moment at artificial intelligence based works or NFTs. Yeah, also needs new thinking and new considerations and new ways of preserving and documenting media artworks.
Yeah, I just can agree to what Gaby said, and of course LIMA, and there's like different institutions that are experts and trying to figure out more of these questions. For the video forum itself is not as important, as we already like try to restrict ourselves on formats we can handle, more on the sense of video art in a classic sense maybe, and then of course like making for example, to make just the accessibility to being able seeing the works from abroad online is something we have been working on, but it's immensely complicated due to all the copyright questions, and of course there's possibilities, but also as many of the works we have in the collection like from artists that are like not having estates, or like it's difficult to approach the people. So we're still working on it, but also I think even then it's important to find a good way to make it clear that this is not a kind of YouTube, that you still have some kind of focus and to understand like the context of video art is, and so I think this is also just putting things online is not the solution for sure, like, because there's so much, as we talked about the context before, I mean, to find an interesting way and a good way to present work. So what we usually did was more like screenings or curated screenings or programs we had online for a certain amount of time. I personally also still think it's to really like have an experience with the work. It's in the best presentation is like in a setup that is made for that. And I think it's both. It's like trying to make it to give enough context and not too much, and then still making things accessible. It's not easy to handle, and the whole new I mean, to conserve VR or AR artworks and NFTs is very different in a new form. I don't know where it's leading to, but I know there's many people already invested and finding new ways, and it's interesting to observe. This is what I can say at that point, I guess.
Thank you, Anna and Gaby. And there's a questions from the audience. What do you think about the new trend of AI, such as ChatGPT and its influence to media arts and its archiving? And do you think it is a challenge to authenticity and copyrights of media arts?
Yeah, sure. It's quite a challenge. But it can also be an opportunity for maybe for the whole accessibility of heritage. It's artificial intelligence or could be very useful over time. Not yet, but maybe we get there. And for the copyright, of course, it's super difficult how to deal with it right now. We are still working on how to deal with artists using samples, and now we get some extra steps, of course, how machines or how bots are using and compiling and interfering. So that's it's not an easy way to go, but for sure there are quite some challenges. I was in Berlin I'm not sure it's still on show. There was a really nice exhibition by Jonas Lund, where he is, it's called In the Middle of Nowhere. Ah, yeah, it's still there till the 10th of March. He's using all what you mentioned to present works, but also to criticize it. So maybe you check it out. There are also texts online. It's called In the Middle of Nowhere. Just as an example, because there's so much going on currently.
Anna, do you have any response? Yeah.
Not specifically to the ChatGPT question.
Yeah.
Not to add to Gaby.
From the audience, do you have any questions? Can leave the questions on the chat box, and also to raise out the questions here. If not, maybe I can ask the final questions.
Sorry, I have a question. May I?
Okay, sure.
Thank you for the meaningful sharing from both of you. I have a question in relation to the funding of your organizations. I always think that funding is very important to substantiate what you guys have been doing. So I wonder if your government of your respective country is actively participating and supporting your organizations. Thank you.
I didn't get the last part. Like, could you please repeat?
Oh yeah, I said I think the funding is very important to substantiate what you guys have been doing. So I wonder if your government is actively participating or subsidizing your organization to substantiate the what you have been doing. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. For our side, yes, we are like publicly funded, and so our whole institutional funding comes from the Berlin Senate. So it's not a federal funding; it's from Berlin. And also the scheme I mentioned in my presentation, this is for the new acquisitions of the Videoforum, comes also via the Berlin Senate. It's not directly by the Senate, but they do not interfere with view to what we the choices we make, nor in the programming of n.b.k in general. If it's not like, I don't know, anti-Semitic or anti-racist or whatever, of course. And yeah, and for the collection, it's the same. We have like a funding commission that is, but is based in experts, also other curators and collection directors of other public institutions, but not the government itself is not involved in these decisions. Yeah.
And we are also funded by the city, so the city of Amsterdam, and we're funded on project based. So these research projects are funded by different private or public bodies, and we gain quite some income ourselves with like all the preservation services. But indeed, at the moment, we're also looking for more support from the government. And we also think there is a particular momentum. The volume that also museums now acquired on media artworks is raising. There's also now again this attention for media art, and also this momentum of all this new metaverse, NFT, all these hopes for the future, technical future. But unfortunately, there is a lot emphasis. No, should not say it like that. There's a lot of emphasis for development, of course. but there should also be some for sustainability and also to see this as a heritage. So and we are raising more awareness for that, and also hope that, and also the institutions or the networks I mentioned, like the networks with the artists and the networks with the cultural heritage infrastructure and the network with the Dutch museums. We are building on a larger network and a larger awareness that this discipline, or how do you want to call it, is very important and innovative heritage, and this part should be supported more than it is now.
Thank you.
Thank you for your questions, and also thank you, Anna and Gaby. I think it's time to wrap up, and thank you so much for the sharing, and also please stay tuned for the upcoming video forum, VMAC forum. I mean, VMAC forum from Videotage, and also Videotage is also having different kinds of events in the recently, and also feel free to share your thoughts and comments with us through email or social media. Thank you today, Gaby and Anna. And please keep in touch. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks.
Thank you.